everybody. Welcome to the Legacy Wealth Show. This is Tim Bratz, and I'm excited for our guest. We have Mr. David Phelps, Dr. David Phelps here with us. I've known David for a few years now, and have a ton of respect for David and what he's been able to do from a wealth generation standpoint. He's a former dentist and helps other dentists kind of get outside of that the hamster wheel of trading their time for money and the transactional income, moving them into investment sources and that produce the residual income, passive income, and create that legacy wealth. So, Mr. Phelps, I appreciate you being here, buddy. Thank you.
Tim, it's a pleasure. You didn't send me like any special seat harness or something like that, because with you, I know the energy is going to kick up over the top, and I'm afraid I may be bouncing out of my seat here. So if I do, just stop the show.
Get ready for it, buddy.
Let me pick it back up again, but I'm here. I'm ready. So let's do it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. And David, I have a ton of respect for you and everything that you've built. And just seeing, your growth over the past couple of years and how you've been able to impact a lot of other people's lives, both people who are in your mastermind, doctors and dentists, and those folks trying to move over to the investment side of the quadrant, the business owner side of the quadrant, and not only them, but other people in real estate and other alternative asset sources where you're helping grow and really being a catalyst that puts multiple people together, the connector, right? That puts the operators together with the money and connects people in that way. So maybe you can give a little background on, where you started, how you started out in more of the white collar profession, how you've transitioned over into the business owner aspect that you are right now.
Yeah, great, Tim. So I actually was a real estate investor before I became a dentist. And a lot of people don't know that. They think So the way that started was probably like a lot of people who are listening to this podcast, we're all seekers. I mean, every one of us, no matter what we're doing right now in our lives, whatever our business model is, whatever we aspire to be, this is the Legacy Wealth Show. So people, at some point in your life, you start thinking about legacy. But when you're really young, it's about you, right? I'm not, so I wasn't married. I was getting through school. Kind of following my father's footsteps. He is a physician, so I decided to deviate a little bit to dentistry because I didn't want the long hours and on call that I saw him do. So I thought dentistry would be a good path. But at the same time, when I was in college, and I'm not saying everything was easy for me. It wasn't. I have to work at everything. So don't get me wrong when I say I was reading other books about investing while I was in school. It wasn't because I was bored. I just am a seeker. So I'm reading the books about investing money. I didn't have any money when I was in school. I had student loan debt like everybody has today. I was working jobs in restaurants to just pay my bills in school. But I still thought, well, someday I'm going to have money that I need to learn how to be a good steward of investing, right? And so I just started reading books. There wasn't any internet back then. This is way, way, way before internet, right? So there was no forums. There was nothing. I don't think Robert Allen had even come out with his No Money Down book. All right? So I was out there, babe in the woods. But there actually were books, obviously, on investing in the stock market. So I read those books about mutual funds and all that stuff. And then I found a few books on real estate. In a classic one was by William Nickerson, how I turned $1,000 into $1 million. That was $3 million. That was $5 million in real estate. So I read both sides of the equation, right? Wall Street and alternative investments being real estate. And Wall Street made no sense. Because I thought, well, you're just kind of like guessing. You're guessing, And I thought with real estate, everything that Nickerson spoke about in that book said, well, there's a level of control. If you do things a certain way, there's a level of control, and it's an inefficient market, meaning you could, a small player, like a single dental student, college student, could actually get in the game and make something of it. Mm-hmm. So long story short, after college, I started dental school. That's another 4 years. And I was in Dallas, Texas, and I went to my dad and said, Dad, why am I going to be paying rent for 4 years? I'm going to be in this one place. Why don't we, and the key word was we, why don't we buy a house? Because I had no money or credit. I needed. So good thing he said yes. He flew down. We got a realtor. The one thing we did right, we did a lot of things right, but one thing we did right is we found the worst property in a great neighborhood. That's kind of one of the keys, right? That's what you do today in commercial. You find value add. So I didn't have that term, but it's value add. It was an estate sale. That house mechanically was good. It just needed updating. Perfect, right? Perfect. Stately houses, but this one was just, lady been hanging out there for 30 years after her husband died. So took that property. I learned to manage, which is a good thing. Got my dental school buddies over to help rehab it. That's another thing that if you can do that, that's a good cheap labor source. Just provide beer and sort of gets done, but good enough for tenants.
Yeah.
And so held on that property for 4 years, sold it when I graduated dental school. That property we bought for $83,000. That was in 1980. That's almost 40 years ago, Tim. 1980 is
Wow.
when I started. 13.5% was our mortgage interest rate. Yes, sir. 13.5%. How can you make money at 13.5%? Well, guess what? We did.
If you buy it right, I guess you can, right?
Yeah, if you buy it right. So, well, and that's another story for another day. But interest rate changes, will affect values of properties, and everything shifts and sorts itself out. But during the turbulence, that's where people get beat up. Okay, that's another story. But my dad and I, after 4 years, we split together about $50,000 in capital gain profit. Now, my $25,000. When I look back over the years I was in school and I was waiting tables at a pretty high-end restaurant, so I made good money back in the day. I could make $100 a night, which was good money back in 1980 with flexible hours. But when I added up all the hours that I did waiting tables and then compared that to my dollar per hour with a capital gain asset, this being a property that we acquired the right way, financed it the right way, and then managed it well enough, not perfectly, but well enough, my dollar per hour was 10x, 10 times what I made in the restaurant earning $100 an hour. So I made $1,000 per hour on the hours I spent with a capital asset. Well, for sure, the bells went off. Ding, 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 ding. Hey, you're going to be a dentist, and that's great because, there's opportunity to make good money, but, you got to work, you got to work. But there's this thing called capital assets, real estate. I'm going, well, if that worked one time, why couldn't that work again? So I took my $25,000 and I leveraged that. And key word here is leverage, like a big dog, because again, I didn't have any extra money. So I had leverage. I took over, didn't assume you could buy subject to existing financing, VA, FHA all day long back in the day. So I took over I put $2,000 down, take over a motivated seller's property, take over that loan, leverage like a big dog. And then I just took the extra capital out of my practice and just started pounding those loans down. Most of those loans were about 8 or 9%. So I just pounded them down. Well, number one, that took money that otherwise would have been spent on lifestyle typically. Nothing against my former wife, but that was money. Once it's in equity and property, it's kind of like locked up.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I mean, I'm being a little bit facetious, but I'm also saying it's a disciplined plan. So I'm not saying that pounding down a mortgage is the way to go, but in my case, it was. So 15 years later, Tim, I had basically replaced my dental active income. It took 15 years.
Wow.
I can do it. We can do it a whole lot faster today.
Right.
That was the guy starting with $25,000, and I ramped up and had 35 houses. A bunch of them were paid off at that point, and so basically I was free. So now life is never a straight shot, is it? So you think one day you're on top, and next day something else happens. So my daughter, my only child, she was diagnosed and suffered through 3 arduous years of chemotherapy because of leukemia when she was an infant, 2.5 years old to 5. She got through it, survived it. She's 27 years old next month. So all things are good, but that was a big hole. It caused our marriage, my marriage to her mother, to terminate, unfortunately. You take an emotional and a financial beating on that. Anybody who's been through that knows that. So recovering from that, but again, because I understood real estate, network, connections, financing, leverage, I was able to rebuild. And just 6 years later, not 15, 6 years later, I was back to where I was. So for people listening today and are going, the markets are volatile and I'm scared about the stock market. So I'm putting money in cash, which is, by the way, is probably a good thing to do. If you're scared, just put it in cash. But when you understand alternative investments and what they can do, if you're hooked up with the right people, and that's the key. What I teach all my Freedom Founders members today is don't do it like I did when I was young, because I had more time than money. But now when you're older in life and you have a career, a business practice, you've got other investments you've scrimped together and saved and got it. Now you want that money working for you. And so Tim, you and I know, but we're preaching to the choir here, but there is nothing better than investing in alternative investments, capital assets, business and or real estate. It's the place to be. Is it easy? Not necessarily, but the biggest issue people have is they try to do it all themselves.
Yeah.
And I try to tell doctors, look, your best time until you're ready to leave the chair, sell the practice, your best time is at the chair, seeing patients, bedside, whatever you do, surgery. You don't need to be out there trying to be a Tim Bratz. We invest through Tim Bratz because what Tim does, because you're out there with lead generation and marketing, and you've got You've already built the infrastructure. So I talk to doctors about take a participation.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to take participation, slices of the pie of other people who have gone ahead. That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it. So anyway, divorce, Jennifer, my daughter survived. I decided when she had to then go back and have a liver transplant, this was in 2004 at age 12, all the chemo, she had epilepsy, all the drugs, just her liver was shot, end-stage liver failure at age 12. And so I'm going, okay, I'm thinking really God is telling me, David, I've given you like a couple chances to like revamp your life, because I really think God closes doors or tries to slam them, and we try to put our foot in it sometimes. We just try to keep our foot in there going, well, that's not my plan. And my daughter's situation really is what told me, David, you got to quit being, I call it chained to a business, a practice, chained to it. Because, I had to show up. If I didn't show up in that practice, Tim, we talk about transactional income dollars. If I didn't show up, the overhead was there, but I wasn't there causing it to be produced. It's, we talk about careers and professions as being, like top of the status. If you want status, go for status. But if you want freedom, go for freedom. Nothing wrong with being a doctor, okay?
Yeah.
But we're going to talk a little bit today about, making that transition. So I left practice, and it wasn't easy. Again, I sold once, I sold twice. You probably didn't know about that, did you?
No.
That's what I call the boomerang sale. It's trademarked, by the way, the boomerang sale, Tim.
Comes right back.
It comes right back. But the problem is it doesn't come back as good as it was when you first got out there.
Rarely.
It's like a foreclosed property. A foreclosed business is actually worse than a foreclosed property because it has all the other pieces to it called people and clients that also get whacked and beat up and dissipate into the space. So not only do you have to fixing the practice is like fixing the mechanics. And so I learned a whole lot in doing it. The key thing I said to myself, I said, I'm not going to go back in, suit up, and be that doctor. I am going to have other people do it. For the first time in my life, I am not going to be the person who is solely responsible. I'm going to own it, but I'm not going to be in it. So that's another story for another day for doctors, okay? Because you don't have to be that person if you don't want to be.
Well, I'd love it if you could dive into that just a little bit deeper,
Sure.
Because I think this is an important piece. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are either investing or they're doing transactional, even if they're not in a white collar profession like you were in, even if they're a wholesaler or if they're flipping houses or they're doing something in a transactional thing and they are the business, right? And I think we all go through this transition of, if we're doing, the first up to $1 million in revenue is probably just trying to figure out, does this thing work? It's a proof of concept type phase. And then we get in this phase of making, somewhere between $1 million to $10 million in gross revenue. And it's kind of like hell, right? We were talking with Daniel Marcos about this. And that's that area where you're making money. It's good money. So you want to keep on making that money, but it's not enough to then attract multiple six-figure talent or hire and put the different people and processes in place to get past that. And once you get past that, it's just everything opens up. So talk a little bit about, if you're open to it,
Sure.
about how you were able to make that transition, how you were able to put those right people and the processes in place to step out where you can own the business, but not own a job.
Yeah, so it's all about scalability, right? That's what it comes down to. And I think the more specialized somebody is in their expertise in something, and again, I think for people who are like engineers and architects and doctors and people like that, where that expertise, that license to do what you do and create active income, that's sometimes the hardest one to let go of. But you're right, this same construct falls all the way through any kind of business where that business owner, wholesaler, is making that good transactional money. It's like, yeah, proof of concept, this thing's working, but now you're a cog in that business. And where's the freedom? Because eventually you want to trade money, equity for time. When you're early in life, you got more time. So it's like, okay, I got to put the time in. And that's right. That's the right way to do it. Now, where's the transition from putting that time into where now you are utilizing a capital asset, starting with a business, scaling that up. So what I had to do because I'm always a seeker. So I told you I read books about investing when I was in college. Well, all along, I'm also reading books about marketing, scaling businesses. I hadn't really pulled the trigger to really do it big time with my own practice. And here's why, Tim, because I wasn't uncomfortable enough. Think about that. You just said it. You get to a seven-figure business where maybe you're taking home, netting out a couple $100,000, maybe $250,000. Look, let's face it. That's a good living today on a relative basis. There's nothing wrong with making a couple of. You're at the top of the pyramid in terms of wealth and income. But again, most of us who are driven, that's not what we really want ultimately. Ultimately, we want to have time to spend doing things with people where memories matter. You've got a young family. You're the same way. You're building legacy, but you also, that legacy is being built by the day to day, by the time you spend with your wife and your kids. If you're not doing that,
Exactly.
then you're missing the boat, because you can't ever buy that back. I don't care if you're Jeff Bezos, you cannot buy that back. So putting the constructs together and getting it right. And see, I didn't have it right. It was my daughter's situation that punched me in the face and said, David, wake up. She's 12 years old. You've almost lost her twice now. And you still think that you're just going to go keep making up this secure pile of money to protect the family? But your money can't save your daughter if she's gone, you know? And so with what I knew, people I was becoming networked with that were outside of dentistry, a key thing, you got to get outside your own business construct, because there's what I call industry incest. It's the same old. And so you got to change your mindset. Who do you really want to be in your business? If you love transactional income, you love a certain part of that, then by golly, yes, do it. Do that piece, but don't do the other 80% of the crap that you think you have to do because only you can do it. It's a mindset thing. So I got the business practice back. I sold it. I carried paper. That's why I got it back. You got that. I carried paper because I'm so good at that, right? Yeah. I'm good in real estate, but not so much with businesses. So I carried the paper, and when it came back to me, that's when I decided, okay, I got a couple of choices here. Either I can just close it up and lock the doors, which I could have done, but you know what? That's like a major slap in the face. Here's a business that I built from the ground up, 20 years in it. I had half the staff were loyal to me and stayed. The other half left, and I can't blame them because it was litigation, right? There's a lot of litigation to take a business back. It's not like a quick foreclosure. It's like months. And so things are just getting beat down. A lot of the patients left. So I had to come back in, and number one, I had PR, public relations. How does Dr. Phelps, who we all, and I'm talking about the community, he left, he's gone, he sold out to some guy who couldn't hack it. And a lot of people left. So PR, marketing, going back to community leaders. So a big PR campaign, right? Major, rehiring some new staff. And then also, because I know people that are really good in the dental industry at doing what they do to kind of rebuild, I hired. I invested money in somebody who I knew was good and said, come in here and help me do this, because I don't want to be the one digging the trenches on this. I'm done with that.
You realized what you didn't know, and you brought somebody else in.
Yeah, exactly.
Who can take a 20,000-foot view, because a lot of times you can't see outside of your own box, right?
You can't. I think there's a point where our conservative nature, our frugality, maybe hurts us. And I think there's a time when you've got to look and say, where is my actual best investment? If I've got dollars or access to any equity or something, and I'm trying to fix something, do I just get back and do it all myself? Well, not likely, because I don't do everything well. I do certain things well, but those other things, I've got to find those other people and pay them, hire them, bring them on as joint venture partners, whatever you need to do. That's how you live life. And most of us didn't learn that. I certainly didn't learn it, Tim, when I was going through school. My formal education was all headspace stuff, nothing about how do you deal with people in the real world. I will tell you, telling my white collar professionals who are listening today, real estate taught me more about life, business, negotiation, finance than all the other formal education I had. And I'm not putting that aside and negating it. I'm just saying there's another world out there, and it's fun. Real estate, I got to tell you, Tim, real estate's what always kept a light at the end of the tunnel for me. In my deepest, darkest days of when Jennifer was sick, or when those days when I just hated the practice because I saw Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Smith back to back on my schedule, who, you just, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Not those two.
Those two, but you just go, why? And today, and I know it's for you too, today, building my life so that my business, what I love to do, serves my lifestyle, and I have freedom of relationships. I get to choose who I work with. You do too. We don't have to work with anybody, do any deal that we go, well, I don't like that person. Guess what? You don't have to do it. When I was in my business, you felt like, again, bad mindset, because I thought I needed to see everybody. And you hated some of those days. It's like, why am I doing this? So it was changing the mindset about how you look at yourself, look at your life, look at your assets, skill sets, and how do you rebuild a construct, a business that can run without you. And that's what I did with the practice. So again, hired marketing, PR, hired a good friend who's awesome at that, was well worth all the investment, because 3 years
For
later,
sure.
I'm cashed out 100%. We took a practice that after I took it back, I asked an appraiser, a dental broker appraiser. I said, if I just wanted to quote, wholesale my practice, I go, what can I get for it? He goes, David, I cannot give you an appraised value on a business that went from here to here.
Yeah.
It's got to go the other way. You know that. You look at, I mean, if you're going to sell, then you're going to sell it just for the tangible assets, which is nothing. It's like depreciated equipment. The goodwill was gone. That's what a practice has, goodwill. He said, I can't get you anything for it. I then just will sell off your equipment. I go, well, that's crap. So what's my choice? Do that, or do I figure out a different way to run a business and actually turn it back around so it could have equity that could be sold? And it took 3 years. But the cool thing was, I wasn't in there doing the work. I had three doctors to replace me, and we expanded hours. We made it more consumer friendly. I mean, that was actually fun, because I was orchestrating, not doing. That's what we get to do in real estate. We get to orchestrate. We don't have to go do. Other people will do and do a great job. Those capital assets work really well. So sold it, got out, and then there's like, so now it's like, okay, you think I'd be like happy as lark? Well, I was happy because it was done. I was totally free. Didn't have to go back to that at all. I mean, it was focusing my time on my daughter. I had been for the previous 3 years, which is where I wanted to be, spending time with her when she was well. Really critical period of my life, because I did not want to miss that. And I'm so happy. I have no regrets. I can actually say in my life, I have no regrets. Things I did wrong, they're just called testing and setbacks and learning. That's okay. Never beat yourself about that. But I made the changes I need to make, and allowed me to go, well, what's next? Because I didn't have a next, but I wasn't done at age 45. It's like, no, I'm not going to sit on a beach chair.
No.
That's ridiculous, right? So I had other doctors, medical professionals, dentists who knew me, who knew why I sold out of practice, because of my daughter. It was easy. Okay, I get it. But the question was, Tim, it was like, David, how did you do that? Meaning financially, you're a pretty young guy. And most of us, we're trying to figure out how we can get out at 65 or 70. And see, I didn't mix my two lives. I didn't mix dentistry with real estate. I didn't have tenants coming to the office paying their rent. I figured that would probably be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, because I don't want to mix the two. I'm a dentist. I was a dentist by day, and I was a real estate entrepreneur on the weekends in lunchtime. That's kind of what I was, really. But I kept them separate, so people didn't know except my really close friends. And so they said, well, can you show me, or can you show us how to do that? This is a handful, Tim, not seminars. This is a handful of people. Well, I can show you, but why don't you just piggyback on some of my deals? Okay, well, how does that work? Well, we're talking about private capital.
Yep.
And this was in 2009, 10, 11, 12. Where were we in the market? We were picking off deals like fruit on a tree.
Yeah. Everywhere, right? Everywhere.
It was dropped it easy. And I don't go to banks anymore. So private capital is where I live. So now it was easy. So I'm pulling these deals off at 50 cents on the dollar. They cash flow like crazy. I just brought in private capital, said, look, you piggyback on. I think I did I'll pay you 6%, and I'll give you 25% of the upside when we sell. Well, we've just been selling those properties in the last 2 years, harvesting the equity, and the returns to those private capital investors during that rebound, it's like off the charts. It's like 15, 18%, and they did no work. Does that make me mad? No, because my return was better than that, right? So again, that's an equation for what you do about bringing private capital in, because you can take a slice of that. That market rebound, we'll have it again. We'll see it again. It's going to come back. We'll do that again. The market's great right now. You know what you're doing, but that was what I did. And so they piggybacked, and then more doctors came. Well, David, can you do that? Well, now I'm thinking, well, okay, we're talking about scalability issues, right? Because I'm not out there. I don't have a big team. It was my portfolio. So I'm thinking, well, how do I make this work so that I'm not building something I don't want to build, meaning go out there and do massive lead generation. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I know all these people in real estate. I've been living in this world for 3 decades. I got great people. They need the same thing. They need private capital. Why don't I just connect the dots? Why don't I be the translator between real estate and private capital and kind of show them how to marry together with constructs that work? And so that's organically how Freedom Founders Mastermind came about. Is I started inviting my real estate buddies to come to a meeting with doctors, and I just was there facilitating and building models and showing them. And all of a sudden, now we have commerce. We have commerce going on right there, and it just started to build. And then, part of Collective Genius, where you and I met, and I get an opportunity to mix with the best people in the country, so can bring potentially the best deals to my doctors. They don't have to run around. Well, they couldn't get in CG because they don't, it takes a requirement. But I get them connected to what they need in a fast, efficient way. No guarantees, of course, ever in life, but the safety factor, it's like handing them deals on a silver platter. I mean, truly, when they get to work with people like you, Tim Bratz, the top of the top, again, there's nothing guaranteed in life, but my gosh, you look at tangible assets, you look at real estate, you've always got the asset. If you buy it right, it's always going to cash flow. I don't care what the values go down if we have a reset. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So that's kind of how it all happened. I think that was a good message because a lot of people can relate to that. And as you said, wholesalers who are making transactional income, what's your next? How do you step that game up? How do you start actually building equity? And the way you do that is, you build a scalable company, you start having solid hires, but also think about private capital. Think about cherry picking some of your best deals that you're normally wholesaling and hanging on to those deals and doing some equity participation where you've got capital that's very flexible that lets you cash flow like a big dog, but you share some equity on the backside. That's this equity financing is the safest way to go. Debt financing is the cheapest, but you don't always want to be cheap, particularly in a market, or if you're trying some stuff that's maybe a little in your wheelhouse, a little more speculative. Bring in private capital who will run with you, and they're not banking on this. They're going to run with you because they want to run with you, right? People love to be with people who are out there doing stuff, and people that have a lot of money, they'll put it with people, and they're not sure they want to hit a few home runs, but they're not expecting you to knock out of the park. They just want you to do a great job with the asset you've got and run with the market and see where the market goes.
100%. You had I'm taking notes while you're talking, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I want to kind of extract from that. One being equity in deals, right? I from my perspective, what I've seen, it's great to earn a good yield on your return. But you mentioned this, kind of alluded to this, of how you structured deals early on. You were paying a 6% pref, essentially a 6% return on investment, plus giving part of the equity, a 25% equity upside whenever the property sells. It's easy to raise money that way because investors have a predictable rate of return on their investment. So they know, hey, worst case scenario, we get this thing, goes to nothing, we sell, but at least I made 6%. That's probably
Absolutely
better. It's more stable than whatever I'm getting in the marketplace right now, right? And at the same time, if David's getting rich and I'm helping him get rich, shouldn't I get rich at least a portion of that too? And I have this conversation with a couple great operators like you, like my buddy Josh Cantwell and a couple other people. And we all kind of fell into doing that, paying a fixed rate of return along with some equity back end. And that way it's the best of both worlds for our investors. When we talk about legacy wealth, one of my early mentors said, hey, listen, millionaires and billionaires are made by equity in deals, equity in companies, equity in property. As long as you have equity in those things, that's how you can really build wealth and you let your tenants pay down the property value like you've done, or you keep on stockpiling cash or pounding down the payments on that stuff. And eventually you're stuck or you're left with this asset that's owned free and clear over the course of time. And you don't wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and wait. You sit on the cash flow. You take that in, and then over time, it's all paid off free and clear. You're sitting on millions of dollars, maybe tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. So it's that's powerful, powerful stuff.
Let me just tag on to that and tell you that when I sold my practice for the second time and cashed out, that was right at a 7-figure sale. Now I had to pay tax, so that was my net. That was the gross sale. It was right at seven figures, which in the dental industry, that's a good solid solo doc. Well, I had associates, but solo doc practice. That's right there in the center. And you think, well, that's good. That's good. Here's the deal. My equity in my real estate that I started back, the one house 3 years before I started in dentistry, Tim, my equity, which could cash flow easily at 7-8% on that equity, was 4 times the value of my practice. 4 times.
It's wild.
I show doctors that I say, we work these practices because it makes us transactional income. Got it. Got to do it. No question about it. But equity, what you just said, that practice for most doctors today, and that's another problem, is the industry is shrinking margins, shrinking cash flow, making it so the practice equity for a lot of professionals, doctors, dentists, chiropractors, veterinarians, it's all being consolidated, a massive consolidation. So this equity that they're thinking of or thought they had to sell as part of their nest egg on exit, many times it's not there. there's a window now where there is corporate money coming into play, and they're paying multiples, but that's a window. And when that window closes, that baby's gone. You look at physicians today, most of them have all sold out to the hospital organizations.
Mm-hmm.
They got no equity. They've got a job left. So what are they doing today to build that equity? Because the job, the transactional income, doesn't get you there. You pay tax at ordinary income tax rates. The 401k that people are trying to sell you is not going to get you there. You cannot rely on that stuff. And so they've got to do something outside the box. But that's the key thing I want to show people is like, in the same period of time, the real estate that I started with a joint venture partner where I had no money in that deal versus a practice where I had money and debt in that deal, 20 years later, 4 times the multiple in equity in the real estate.
That's incredible. So powerful when you break that down and look at it that way, especially when you're comparing it to something else. Again, it goes back to, hey, this is my path. I'm staying on that path. I'm not looking left, not looking right. And people, they don't understand that there's other things that are out there. I mean, there's people I know, like I think real estate as a whole, I know some people who are really smart, make a lot of money in real estate. They're really, really good at what they do. And I know some people who aren't that smart, making a lot of money in real estate and getting straight rich and wealthy in real estate. I think it's almost an equalizer of, I don't want to say an equalizer of dummies, but it's kind of that. Like, really, if you have a good work ethic or you understand this wealth generation and the way that you make money, you save money, and then you put money into other investments that makes more money, regardless of you working for it, your money's working for it. If you understand just that simple progression, you can really build a lot of wealth in real estate. And one of the things you've been hitting on a lot is the difference in taxes, right? Earned income taxes. If you're a solopreneur, you're working a job, you have transactional income, you're paying whatever your earned income tax rate is. And so for a high earner, somebody who's making multiple 6 figures, chances are they're probably at 30, 35, 40% on their income tax rate versus what you're talking about is long-term capital gains. When we sell a property, we get paid long-term capital gains. One of the things that we do is what we've been able to structure actually with some of our investors, this is pretty cool, is when we make our pref payments, because they're equity owners in our property, their preferred interest rate, so we pay a 10% on a lot of ours, that's not taxed at whatever their earned income is. Like if they had their money sitting in, a bank account or in a stock and they receive those dividends, they're paying earned income tax rate because it's just a flow through, right? So because they get a K1 because they're a partner in the property, that whatever their gain is, their return, their pref return, that's actually kicked to the back end of whenever the property sells. So they're not paying taxes today. And when they do pay taxes, they pay long-term capital gains rates. It's added onto their basis 10, 15, 20 years down the road whenever we do sell the apartment building. So that's a massive benefit. Obviously, the refinance stages, like we buy apartment buildings, we fix it all up, and we do a cash out refinance. We're able to take that money off the table. It's tax-free. It's like if you had $100,000 house and you put an $80,000 mortgage on it, you take that $80,000 off, it's not taxable income, right? You have to pay it back, but it's not you paying it back, it's your tenants paying it back. And when you explain these different tax advantages that real estate has, I think people don't realize that, since the dawn of civilization, wealth has been measured in land ownership. And when you think about that, who writes the laws? Usually the wealthy, right? The landowners.
Yes.
And so it's all advantageous to people who own real estate, and we're business owners and we're real estate owners. And so the tax laws and the opportunities and the advantages that we have is unbelievable. 1031 exchanges, being able to roll forward your gains tax free, and then when we pass that down to our heirs, it resets the tax basis. So that's a powerful piece that I think a lot of people don't realize. Of going from the transactional to the passive side, and especially in the real estate side of things.
So I tell people that paying tax on your gain in equity, it's voluntary. It's voluntary. Well, that's just what you just said.
Yeah.
If you want to defer it and exchange and then pass it on to your heirs, you didn't pay any tax. Now, if you want to sell it and just pay the tax, you can. But so it's voluntary.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great way of looking at it. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, roll it into something bigger, better, whatever you want to do. And you don't have to pay the taxes. It's your choice, versus earned income taxes, government's on you, right?
Yep.
So one of the other things that you had mentioned was, I think this is a really important piece too, is focusing on the highest and best use of your time. So if I'm a white collar professional, Let me give you an example. I buy my apartment buildings typically from two types of sellers. One is the mom and pop who managed it, owned it, sucked all the cash flow out of it, never reinvested anything back into the property. And when you do that for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, the property falls apart, right?
Yeah.
And they've painted themselves into this corner where they can't get financing, they can't put any money back, they don't have any money, so they have to sell the property. That's one of the sellers I typically buy from. The second seller, though, is a very, very smart white collar professional or entrepreneur who's making a ton of money in their primary business. And they're making money and they understand real estate is a good investment. And they drive past apartment buildings every single day. And they think, I could do that, right? Let me go do it in the cracks of my schedule in my spare time. And, you had tireless work ethic and early on, didn't have kids, didn't have a spouse. You could do real estate in the cracks of your schedule and make that work.
Right.
But if you want to treat it like a real business, I see a lot of people getting involved in real estate, smart people, successful people. I bought 700 units last year from two stockbrokers out of New York City who were making $4 or $5 million a year each. And they buy 700 units. They didn't have a joint venture partner. They've never bought real estate before. They didn't, interview the management company. They got nickel and dimed by the management company. And eventually they didn't want to put any more money into it because they kept on losing more money. So then the property depleted in value even more. And it got to a point where I came in last summer at the peak of the real estate market and I buy 700 units for $15,000 a unit.
Yeah.
In a B plus area. Right.
Yeah.
And so you think about that. And whenever I talk to a lot of my investors, a lot of people come out to my events and say, hey, I want to do this passively maybe, and then I want to do it actively, or I want to be active. And I'm like, listen, until you can jump in with both feet, I would not try to be active in any capacity. Like just be passive, get that income growth up to where you can sell your primary business or leave your job, and then you can dive in with both feet. Then it's time to be active. But, I've seen some really, really successful people that, they go through the learning curves in real estate and they kicked in the teeth and they're getting beat up by tenants and management companies and contractors and all these things. And then they take their eye off the ball in their primary business.
Yes.
And they end up losing one or both of them.
Yes.
So that's important. And I'm glad, I love that you share that concept with your mastermind members, because it's really, really critical, because you're teaching them about building wealth and teaching them about getting that next level and building that legacy. But at the same time, it's you got to be careful on how you do it, making sure that they're partnered up and partnering with somebody who's already spent 10, 15, 20 years in the business, spent tens of thousands of hours going through thousands and thousands of transactions. Cut your teeth on, like, they've already cut their teeth. You can partner up with them, learn from their mistakes, see what they do and how they do it, get involved on that front first, and then be able to, do it the easy way. I think that's the easy way versus the way that I did it and the way that you did it is, getting beat up left and right over and over and over again on project after project. And then finally we're paying for the education in one way or another, right? It's either losing money and a longer time frame, or you get partnered up with the right people through a mastermind or something else like that, and you get educated and you abbreviate the time frame in a big way. So it's good stuff.
I see in a lot of the dental forums, there's investing forums for dentists, and I kind of get a kick out of them. I try to add value. I don't pick on them too much, but you have to be careful, because if you pick on them too much, they don't want you around. They think like just. But there's that same entrepreneurial spirit. I get it. I mean, you want to control it all. You think because you're smart enough, you can do everything. And it's not that you can't academically understand how real estate works, but as you just said, that's different from actually going nuts and bolts on the ground. And it's a business. It's a business when you're actually buying, adding value, managing. I always break up the quadrants of investing in a deal into 4 quadrants. Someone's got to find the deal, find an opportunity. Someone's got to negotiate and close it, right? Someone's got to bring the capital, and 4, someone's got to manage it. Which one do you want to be? And a lot of these young docs go, well, I can do it all. No, you can't. Don't pick a box, and usually it's the capital box for you. Pick the capital box and let the other people that do what they do so well, way better than you can do, because you don't have a business. You don't know how to lead generate. You don't know how to negotiate. You don't know what you're looking at.
It's like, just because you eat in a restaurant doesn't mean you can go open up a restaurant, right? Like it's a new business. Like you're starting a new business, and there's a lot of different pieces and parts that come with it. And what's cool about real estate is we're talking about big value, especially commercial real estate, right? Single family, there's still enough juice in the squeeze for everybody to get paid. But in commercial real estate, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of equity that can be dispersed amongst everybody. So everybody can get paid very, very well and focus on what their unique ability is, what's the highest and best return on their time. Let them focus on that. Let you focus on doing what you're good at. Not only will you make more money that way, but you're gonna have a lot more fun. You're gonna be happier doing it that way too, because you're doing what you're good at. You're not doing this other stuff that you're not good at, right? So that's good stuff. Tell me a little bit about, you've been investing for almost 40 years, right? You've seen a couple of market shifts. Obviously, we're at a peak. There's a lot of people who are getting involved in real estate. You go and get your hair cut, or you go and talk to your waiter or your waitress, and they're talking about how they're investing in real estate part-time. That usually means we're at the peak, right?
Yep.
So what does it look like, or what has it looked like in the past? The investors that you saw who were able to ride out the storm, and the investors that you saw who really got beat up pretty bad in an economic downturn or a market shift that occurred. What was the differentiating aspects of those two types of different investors?
Yeah, it just came down to knowledge and staying away from the euphoria. The ones who made it through fine, stay with the fundamentals. It's what you do. You know what the fundamentals are. When you're buying an asset, you're not caught up with, well, if I buy today, it's just going to be that much more tomorrow. You know the value add you're looking at. So you're adding the value. You're not basing what you're buying, Tim, or on appreciation. Just because the market's appreciated, which we've had a lot of appreciation, since the last downturn in a lot of markets. It's slowed down some, but people still think, well, just because I can buy it, and because money's still relatively cheap and relatively accessible to a lot of people who have jobs or good credit scores, just because you can doesn't mean you should go do it. So they typically—
Great point. I hope you guys are taking notes on that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
You should. Yeah. So and again, there's the euphoria. Look, it's behavioral economics. Everybody, to some degree, gets caught up in it. I think the key thing that you and I do is we keep accountability partners all around us. We're always so that we're not living in a silo in our own little world of thinking, boy, David sure is genius because he's no, you got to take that away. It's fundamentals. It's fundamentals. What are you buying? How are you financing it? Speculation, high leverage is what caught people up in the last downturn. And when you have, particularly when you have high leverage on deals that are marginal, as soon as there's a reset, those cash flows in certain assets, certain geographies, geographic markets can dissipate. And if you're that tight on your cash flow, that's all it takes to drop you down below where you're sucking negative cash flow. How much of that can you take? Well, once the banks start to tighten credit, there's no out. There's no refinance. No investor's going to come in and bail you out with private capital because they're looking to be the vultures, right? They're not going to be stupid. You've got short-term lending, lines of credit. A lot of people use a lot of lines of credit. That's great, but you got to be able to pay that off, and don't use that for long-term acquisition. So people get caught up in that construct where they're using lines of credit, credit cards, or business lines of credit, and they get whacked. The banks have capital calls when the reset happens, and they'll come after not the worst borrowers, but the best borrowers who have assets, because they know you're going to ante up. You're going to sell something. You're going to do whatever you got to do. They'll go after you. They won't go after the deadbeats. You think, just because I keep paying my note, even if I'm sucking eggs right now. No, that doesn't mean if you've got a callable note. And again, read your paperwork, read your contracts, read your promissory notes. If you've got a commercial callable note, and just because you're paying on it doesn't mean you get to keep paying on it. So be aware that your asset can carry you through an economic storm. There's a gap. There's always a gap, 18 to 24 months. If you can ride the gap, baby, you're home free. That's the worst case. There will be losers in every market. We know that. There's a big shakeout. As you said, every Uber driver, every shoe shiner is out there involved in real estate right now. That's when you've got to be careful. Doesn't mean you stop investing. You just realize we are somewhere near the top of the market, and all it takes is something to trigger, and we'll see a reset. But you and I look forward to resets because we're positioned. We position for it. We're set for it. We're not afraid of it. We know it's coming, and we're ready to dive back in and buy that property again from people that are losing it, because they will.
And you're talking about discipline, right? You're not buying for speculation. You're not buying here and hoping tomorrow it's worth this much. You are forcing appreciation, not hoping for appreciation. So by doing the value add, by improving the property, by putting in the sweat equity, you're creating that spread there, which is exactly what we do with apartments too, and what a lot of the guys in CG do with their properties. But you're always buying at a wholesale price. If the market shifts and you're in at 65 cents on the dollar of what the today's value is, and the market shifts by 30%, guess what? You can still sell that property or let it cash flow, and you're be able to ride out that storm. One of the things that I've noticed in a lot of my studies of people who were able to make it through the storm, because I started investing right when the last market cycle was shifting, right? And the people who bought for speculation, especially for resale speculation, saying, hey, I'm going to build these houses or I'm going to flip these houses, and 6 months down the road or 18 months down the road, I can sell these condos for 40% more than what I'm in it. That's speculative. Like, it's not very predictable. I like buying for cash flow. The reason I buy apartment buildings is because the cash flow is very sustainable, and I buy in B class areas. So not, I buy in A and B class areas, but I don't do luxury. When the market's good, everybody can afford that workforce A and B class housing. When the market shifts, all those luxury renters move into more A and B class kind of areas, right? So you're maintaining a high occupancy regardless of the market shift. Yes. Your numbers and your rents aren't going to shift that much. And as long as you have cash flow coming in, you can cover your operating expenses, you can cover your debt service, and you can put some cash in your pocket. And chances are you're still bankable when nobody else is, right? You can still go get financing from a traditional bank or from Fannie or Freddie or one of these CMBS type loans when nobody else can. And that allows you to pick up a lot of real estate. There's the real wealth is built in a downturn when you're buying at a deeper discount and then letting that, appreciate over time. So always buy wholesale, force appreciation, be disciplined, buy for cash flow. Those are all great things. Good stuff. Awesome. Well, David, this has been a ton of value. I appreciate you coming on the show. How can people get a hold of you and connect with you? I know that there's a lot of white collar professionals and people that I've talked to and sent your way before and got a ton of value out of it. So I'd love for you to be able to share some of your contact information, and that way people can take a look at Freedom Founders if it's a good fit, or get involved with you somehow.
Sure. The biggest thing I love to do is just get a message out, a mindset shift to the people that connect with me. And it's not just doctors and dentists, but anybody who's a business owner. But I do a lot of blogs and videos. I've got a podcast. It's called Dentist Freedom Blueprint Podcast, but you don't have to be a dentist to listen to it. In fact, if you listen to it for 6 months in a row, I'll make you an honorary dentist. How about that? Just kidding. Dentist Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Great place to go to just learn more of these constructs, business and real estate, right? Freedom Founders. So it's freedomfounders.com. That's our elite mastermind. But I do a lot of, again, if you connect there, I've got a digital newsletter. I do a lot of video blogs. I'm not trying to get people to sign up to be a part of a mastermind. There's a few people that probably could be, but I just like to get a message out to them so people can connect with me that way. And, I just love to build that community larger among kind of my tribe and have them think differently about their life, their future, and, their legacy wealth building, because it is about legacy. And we focus on, what does legacy mean to you? So lots of things that people don't think about because they're so busy in their lives. And it's like, we just pull them back to 30,000 feet and say, just take a breath and let's look at the big picture. You've done some things really well in your life, but there's pieces of a puzzle. If we rearrange some things a little bit, boom, it's going to make a big difference in their lives.
I love it. It's powerful stuff. I hope everybody took notes. Go listen to this episode again. David Phelps is an absolute rock star. We have a lot of aligned visions, David. So I'm excited to see you continue to grow and make an impact on other people's lives, and appreciate all the value you brought to this and all the value you brought Freedom Founders and Collective Genius and everything else that we do together. So thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Love it, Tim. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. That's a wrap for the Legacy Wealth Show. See you guys again on the next show. Thank you so much.